And it was unfortunately not 14 days. That would have been good. It was over about 13 weekends over the summer. And, you know, Jeff and I talked about this. You all heard of Carmageddon last year in Los Angeles? We should have called it Carmageddon or something sexy like that, and then disappointed everybody that it didn't fail. But it was a tremendous success. So, it's a good question. I appreciate that. The 23 and out is true. That applies retrospectively. So the current employees or employees that were employed as of the date of the collective bargaining change, the new employees, such as myself, for example, would be for the new 25, 55. You know, the good news is the T actually has, first of a private pension system, and it's pretty well funded. In the best years, a couple years ago, it was in the high 90s for funding. So the pension system itself is not a particularly cost driver for us. The T will probably deposit somewhere between $60 and $70 million this year into the pension system. On the healthcare costs, no, that's an important point. That's an unfunded liability right now. We're not carrying in our books. It's probably $1 to $1.5 billion, certainly, over time. But what we've done is not only the current employees, but the retirees as well are now part of the GIC as well. So they're paying more of their premiums. They're paying higher costs, I think, which are largely consummate to what folks in the private sector are paying for. Certainly, we may be paying for the sins of our fathers, whether it's generous benefits in the past or big dig, but you know, I've really tried very hard on this job, and Jeff before me, it doesn't matter whose fault it is or what happened in 1982 or 89. It's mine to manage. So certainly some of those legacy costs. The biggest number one problem for the T is its debt service. Absolutely number one. And that forward funding, while a great idea, which was to get the T on a fiscal diet, the pro formas that were there were completely wrong. It showed a 2% cost reduction every year, I don't know, and with no plan. And it showed a very rigorous tax growth over the last 12 years, somewhere between 3 and 5% on an annual basis. And that was just never going to happen, never, ever going to happen. The T is the largest consumer of electricity in the Commonwealth. It has the same cost pressures. And I encourage you to read David D'Alessandro's report, if you haven't, which explains really what the cost structure has been over the last 12 years. Folks think that we've given out generous wages, for example. The wage packages have been, again, consummate to CPI growth in the Commonwealth over the last 12 years, and most of our unions are taking zeros this year or next year, and we just negotiated the toughest collective bargaining agreements in the history of the T, 7% wages over 4 years. You take in GIC, it's less than 5% total in employees' pockets over the next 4 years.
Rail connection down to